Sorry for the inconvenience. There are some technical problem and some network connection problem. So in my last class we are discussing, in fact we are supposed to discuss about fluid, electrolyte and acid base balance in children. But due to time constraint we could discuss only fluid and electrolyte, and we have decided that we will discuss acid base disorders in the next class. So today we will be discussing acid base disorders in children. This is again you can get short notes in your theory exam, and in your practical exam definitely you will get a question from this topic. You will get ABG and you will be asked to diagnose what is the primary acid base disorder, and you will be asked question on that. So in your final MBBS examination, practical examination, you will get questions from this topic. So this is a conceptual topic, so you have to listen carefully and try to understand carefully. So first, before discussing acid base disorders, we will discuss about normal regulation of acid base equilibrium in our body. As you know, the normal pH of our body or our blood is 7.35 to 7.45. The normal range is from 7.35 to 7.45. This is the normal range. And whenever the pH decreases below 7.35, it causes acidosis or acidemia, and if the pH increases above 7.45, it causes alkalemia or alkalosis. But there are various regulatory mechanisms in our body which try to maintain this pH very tightly in this range, that is 7.35 and 7.45, because any alteration in pH, that is acidosis or alkalosis, can cause severe damage to our organ systems. Okay. So to maintain body homeostasis of pH, changes in pH are registered by a complex system of intracellular and extracellular buffers. So buffers are substances or chemicals which register changes in pH when acid or alkali is added to it. So when acid or alkali is added, the pH decreases or increases respectively. So to counter that change in pH, these buffers act. Okay. So buffers can be extracellular as well as intracellular. Extracellular buffers are bicarbonate and ammonia, whereas intracellular buffers are proteins and phosphate. There is another system of buffer, that is carbonic acid and bicarbonate buffer system. Have a look at it carefully. You must have read in your physiology or biochemistry as well. When we breathe or take inspiration, apart from oxygen, we also take small amount of CO2. Sorry. And CO2 is also produced in our body from various biochemical reactions, as you know. Now this CO2 combines with water, that is H2O, to form H2CO3, that is carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is again converted into H plus, that is hydrogen ion, plus SCO3 minus, that is bicarbonate ion. Now this bicarbonate ion can combine with sodium to form sodium bicarbonate, and all these steps are reversible. Okay. So again this sodium bicarbonate can be again converted to sodium and bicarbonate. This bicarbonate can again combine with H plus to form carbonic acid, and carbonic acid can be broken down to CO2 and H2O, and this CO2 is excreted by our lungs when we do expiration. Okay. So this is how, and all the steps, as you can see, are reversible. Depending upon our need, the reaction can shift to right or left. Okay. So this is called carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system in our body. The accumulation of hydrogen ions of non-volatile acids due to excess production of or inadequate buffering or failure to excrete H plus or loss of bicarbonate results in metabolic acidosis, and if the reverse occurs, it results in metabolic alkalosis. So acidosis can occur if there is increased amount of H plus or decreased amount of bicarbonate. Increased amount of H plus can be due to increased production, decreased excretion or inadequate buffering, and loss of bicarbonate may be due to various reasons. Okay. So if there is increased H plus or decreased bicarbonate, then it will lead to metabolic acidosis. And if there is decreased hydrogen ion and increased bicarbonate, that is reverse of metabolic acidosis, then it will result in metabolic alkalosis. Hyperventilation results in CO2 washout and drop in arterial PCO2. PCO2 is partial pressure of CO2 in our blood. So when there is hyperventilation, we breathe very fast, then what will happen? There will be more excretion of CO2, so there will be CO2 washout. And if there is CO2 washout, it will cause alkalosis, because as you can see in this picture, that CO2 and H2O when combined, it forms ultimately carbonic acid and H plus. So if there is washout of CO2, then less carbonic acid will be formed and less H plus ion will be formed, right? So if there is CO2 washout, then less H plus ion will be formed, and that will cause alkalosis. So hyperventilation, CO2, more CO2 excretion or more CO2 washout, and drop in arterial partial pressure of CO2, that will lead to respiratory alkalosis. And hypoventilation will cause accumulation of CO2 in our body, and that will cause respiratory acidosis. So when CO2 level increases in our body, that causes acidosis, and when carbon dioxide level decreases, that causes alkalosis. Now again there is another regulatory mechanism, that is renal regulation of acid-base balance. The principal regulators of bicarbonate mainly by two methods. First is reabsorption of bicarbonate, mostly in the proximal convoluted tubules. Okay. Around 80% to 90% of bicarbonate, filtered bicarbonate, gets reabsorbed in the kidney, in the proximal tubule and ascending loop of Henle. Excretion of H plus and therefore generation of bicarbonate in distal tubules and collecting ducts. So kidney maintains normal pH by reabsorption of bicarbonate and excretion of hydrogen ion. Okay. The mechanisms, there are different mechanisms like bicarbonate, carbonic acid in the kidney tubules, monohydrogen phosphate, dihydrogen phosphate buffer, ammonium buffer, sodium hydrogen exchange in the distal tubule. I am showing you the picture here, figure diagram. So first you see in the renal tubular cell, there is, hope you can see the pointer on your screen. And not, then you can see that in the renal tubular cell you can see that H2O and CO2 combine to form H2CO3. Step 1 you can see. Okay. Then H2CO3 is broken down to hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. Okay. And even this process is reversible. So whenever there is more H plus, then this H plus combines with SCO3 to form ultimately H2O and CO2. So this bicarbonate acts as a buffer to neutralize H plus. Okay. Now you can see this H plus if is excreted in the tubular lumen by the sodium hydrogen bond exchanger. Okay. So this hydrogen, when it goes into the tubular lumen, you can see it combines with sodium monohydrate phosphate to form sodium dihydrogen phosphate. Okay. And this is another buffer, sodium monohydrogen phosphate, that combines with sodium H plus to form sodium dihydrogen phosphate. This is another phosphate. You can see that is sodium monohydrogen phosphate and dihydrogen phosphate buffer. Now another mechanism is, you can see that inside the renal tubular cell, glutamine is broken down to ammonia and glutamate. Now this ammonia is secreted into the tubular lumen. In tubular lumen, this ammonia combines with H plus to form ammonium. So this is another buffer system, that is ammonia-ammonium buffer system. One is carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. Another is your monohydrogen phosphate and dihydrogen phosphate buffer system. And third is your ammonia-ammonium buffer system. Okay, so so this is all about the normal regulation of acid-base balance. I discussed it in brief. So this is in brief all about normal regulation of acid-base balance. So mainly kidney and lungs regulate the normal acid-base balance in our body. Kidney maintains acid-base balance by reabsorbing sodium bicarbonate and excreting hydrogen ion. Okay, whereas lungs regulate acid-base balance by excreting and conserving carbon dioxide. Okay. So after discussing this normal regulation, we will discuss about the various disorders that occurs in acid-base balance. Okay. So types of acid-base disorders. It can be acidosis or alkalosis, or it can be mixed. Acidosis is when the pH falls below 7.35. So it can be due to respiratory cause leading to respiratory acidosis. It can be due to metabolic cause leading to metabolic acidosis. The alkalosis can be again respiratory alkalosis or metabolic alkalosis. And these four are called as simple acid-base disorders. Okay. Again, there is another form called as complex, or you can say mixed acid-base disorder. In this, you may get two types of acid-base disorder: respiratory acidosis plus metabolic alkalosis, or metabolic acidosis plus respiratory alkalosis, or anything. Okay, mixed acid-base disorder. So we will discuss one by one, but before discussing that, we should know what are the normal values for each of these. As you all know, first you see the middle column, that the normal range for pH is 7.35 to 7.45. So if the pH is less than 7.35, then it will cause acidemia, and if it is more than 7.45, it will cause alkalemia or alkalosis. Now you look at the PCO2. PCO2 normal range is 35 to 45. If PCO2, and the unit is millimeter of mercury. PCO2 means partial pressure of CO2 in our blood. Okay. So if the normal range is 35 to 45 millimeter of mercury, if it is less than 35, it will cause respiratory alkalosis. If it is more than 45, then it will cause respiratory acidosis. The normal range of bicarbonate is 22 to 28 millimole per liter. The unit is millimole per liter. So if it is less than 22, it will cause metabolic acidosis. If it is more than 28, it will cause metabolic alkalosis. So if you get a patient in your emergency, then how can you know what is normal pH, normal PCO, what is his PCO2, what is his bicarbonate level? For that, we do a test called as ABG, that is arterial blood gas examination. Okay, as you can see here, ABG, that is arterial blood gas examination. In that, what we do, we obtain or we draw arterial blood from any artery of the patient. Then we put it in the ABG machine, and that ABG machine interprets the different values from the arterial blood, that is pH, PCO2, bicarbonate level, and apart from that you can see that this is a sample of a report of a patient, ABG report. You can see the report that I have underlined pH, PCO2 and SCO3, but apart from that you can see the ABG shows lots of other parameters, around 20 or more, like even PO2, hemoglobin concentration, what is sodium concentration, calcium, magnesium, lactate, even potassium concentration. Okay, so apart from pH, PCO2 and bicarbonate, it shows various different parameters as well. But for today, our main concern is pH, PCO2 and bicarbonate. Okay, and regarding ABG, we will discuss in detail when we come to a clinical class or a demo class. In your demo class, I will discuss about how to do ABG, how to process it, what are the precautions, what are the contraindications, what are the indications, and how to perform. Okay, everything we will discuss about ABG in your demo class or in your clinical class. Okay, now you just know how to interpret ABG and diagnose acid-base disorder. So you focus mainly on pH, PCO2 and bicarb. Okay, and you I think remember the normal range. The normal range of pH is 7.35 to 7.45, PCO2 is 35 to 45, and bicarb is 22 to 28. Hope you remember all this. Now from the ABG, how to diagnose what is the disorder. Okay, so we diagnose by stepwise manner. In step 1, we look at the pH and see whether the blood is acidic or alkalemic. Okay, so you can see this ABG. In this ABG, you have a look at the pH. The first parameter you can see it is 7.154. So this is less than 7.35. So this patient is having acidosis, right? So from looking at the pH, you can diagnose whether it is acidosis or alkalosis, right? Now you have to in step 2, you have to diagnose what is the primary disorder. For that, apart from pH, you have to look for PCO2 and bicarbonate level. So as you can see that in respiratory acidosis and metabolic acidosis, in both the pH will be low. So to differentiate between whether it is respiratory acidosis or metabolic acidosis, you have to look for PCO2 and bicarb. Okay, so if pH is low and PCO2 is increased or high, then that is respiratory acidosis. If pH is low and bicarbonate is low, then it is metabolic acidosis. So in respiratory acidosis, the PCO2 will be high, and in metabolic acidosis you can see the PCO2 will be either normal or decreased, and the bicarbonate will be decreased. Okay, similarly in respiratory alkalosis, in metabolic alkalosis, the pH will be increased or high, but in a respiratory alkalosis the PCO2 will be low, whereas in metabolic alkalosis the PCO2 will be high or normal and the bicarbonate will be high. Okay, so looking at PCO2 and bicarbonate, looking at pH, you can just classify whether it is acidosis or alkalosis, but looking at PCO2 and bicarbonate, you can also classify whether the acidosis or alkalosis is respiratory or metabolic, right? So again, hope you guys understood this. See, this is a concept, if there is alkalosis, then metabolic alkalosis, bicarbonate will be increased. Metabolic acidosis, bicarbonate will be low. Respiratory acidosis, PCO2 will be high, and respiratory alkalosis, PCO2 will be low. You just remember this. Okay, now going back to the ABG, in this patient the pH is 7.154. so the first step is patient is having acidemia, that we diagnosed. Now you have a look at the PCO2. PCO2 is, if you can see clearly, then PCO2 is 65.2. Okay, it is 65.2 millimeter of mercury, so it is increased. As you know, the normal range is 35 to 45. So here in the patient the PCO2 is 65, so it is increased. So this is a case of respiratory acidosis. As you can see, the bicarbonate level is 23.1. So it is normal. 22 to 28 is normal. So 23.1 is within normal range. So it is not metabolic cause. The cause of acidosis is respiratory because the PCO2 is increased. That is 65.2 millimeter of mercury. Hope you guys understood this, how to diagnose respiratory acidosis or metabolic acidosis or alkalosis. Okay. So to assess whether you have understood or not, okay, look at the question. I have a question. You just read the question carefully and you type your answer and send me. The question is, a patient is seen in the emergency department with following blood values. The pH is 7.8, bicarb is 32 millimole per liter, PCO2 is 38 mmHg. So what is the acid-base disorder in this patient? Okay, you write down your answer and type your answer and send me. You don't have to write the full answer. You just write A or B or C or D. What is your answer? You just type and send me. Very good. I am getting lots of answer. In fact, correct answer. Most of you have given the correct answer. In fact, I think all of you have given the correct answer. Scroll नहीं हो रहा है. Okay, the first answer is given by Sahiba, Navjot, Vikas, Spardha, Kisalya, Subham, Sabi, Priyanka, Akash, Sulagna, Pipin, Priti. Everyone has given the correct answer. Okay, Sudiksha, Aman, Muskan, everybody has given the correct answer. So the answer is D. Okay, that is metabolic alkalosis. Okay. Okay, so the answer is metabolic alkalosis because pH is increased, so it is 7.8, so more than 7.5, so it is alkalosis, and PCO2 is normal. Okay, 35 to 45 normal range, so PCO2 is normal, whereas bicarb is increased more than 28. Okay, it is 32, so it is metabolic alkalosis. So almost everyone who answered has answered given the right answer, that is metabolic alkalosis. So I hope you guys can like answer this in your exam as well. Okay, it's very easy if you understand this. Now, okay, I will go to this question later. Okay, these questions. Now the third step is to look for whether there is appropriate compensation or not. Okay. Compensation means what happens if there is any metabolic acidosis, then the respiratory or the lungs try to compensate it by doing respiratory alkalosis. Okay, opposite of what happens in metabolic. Okay, like if there is metabolic acidosis, then then the lungs try to excrete more CO2 to cause alkalosis. Okay, so that it can compensate for the metabolic acidosis, and vice versa. It happens in all the four disorders. Okay, so lungs and kidney function simultaneously to maintain our acid-base balance. So whenever there is any problem with any lungs or kidney, then the other one tries to compensate it by increasing or decreasing the other components, PCO2 or bicarbonate. Okay, so that is called as compensation. Okay, so if there is a metabolic acidosis, then the lungs try to excrete more CO2 to compensate for the acidosis, and the compensation is calculated by Winter's formula. Okay, the level of PCO2 should be 1.5 into bicarbonate level plus 8 plus minus 2. So to look for the compensation, whether the respiratory compensation has been done adequately or not, to look for that you have to see the PCO2 level, whether the PCO2 level has decreased adequately or not, and for that you have this formula. Okay, the PCO2 level should be 1.5 into bicarbonate plus 8 plus minus 2. Okay, that is in metabolic acidosis. So I am giving you an example. Just you see this example. No, this is sorry. This is respiratory process. So I will give you this example. Okay. Okay, you look at example 3. There are 3 examples here. You just look at example 3 and you diagnose it. What is the disorder? So it is metabolic acidosis. As you can see, pH is decreased, so it is acidosis, and bicarb is also decreased. It is 12, so it is acidosis, metabolic acidosis. So in this metabolic acidosis, we will see whether the PCO2, there is adequate compensation by PCO2 or not. So you apply this formula 1.5 into bicarb plus 8 plus minus 2. So bicarb in that percent is 12. So 12 into 1.5 is 18. 18 plus 8 is 26. 26 plus minus 2 means 24 to 28. So for a bicarbonate, okay, level of 12, if there would have been adequate compensation, then the PCO2 level would have been in between 22 to 28. Okay, but here the PCO2 level is 42. So there is no adequate compensation. So you can see the answer, that there is metabolic acidosis but it is uncompensated, or you can say in other words that metabolic acidosis with respiratory acidosis as well, because if the lungs was functioning normally, then it would have compensated for that. Okay, and PCO2 would have decreased to in between 22 to 28, but PCO2 is more than that, 28. So apart from metabolic acidosis, there is also respiratory acidosis, or you can say metabolic acidosis which is not compensated, right? So this is how you can calculate for whether there is compensation of metabolic acidosis or not. Okay, the formula is 1.5 into bicarbonate plus 8 plus minus 2. So if serum PCO2 is more than expected PCO2, like this example, then additional respiratory acidosis, you can say it is uncompensated metabolic acidosis or metabolic acidosis plus additional respiratory acidosis. Okay, so if there is metabolic acidosis, then for every 10 increase in bicarbonate, PCO2 increases by 7. Okay, for every 10 increase in SCO3 bicarbonate, PCO2 increases by 7. So you can see in the first example, this metabolic acidosis, and the bicarbonate is increased around 5, okay, from the normal 4 or 5. So for 10, the increase in PCO2 should be around 7. So this here the bicarbonate has increased around 4 or 5. So the increase in bicarbonate would have been around 3 to 4. Okay, but here you can see the PCO2 is normal. In fact, in the lower range, PCO2 have not increased. So it is a metabolic alkalosis which is not compensated. Okay. Now for respiratory acidosis, for acute respiratory acidosis, for every 10 increase in PCO2, the bicarbonate should increase by 1, and for chronic respiratory acidosis, for every 10 increase in PCO2, the bicarbonate should increase by 4. Okay. In similar way, for respiratory alkalosis, for every 10 increase in PCO2, bicarbonate should decrease by 2 or 1 or 3, and for chronic, for every 10 decrease, the PCO2 should decrease by 5 or 2 to 4. So you remember 1 and 4 in both. Okay. In acidosis as well as in alkalosis as well as in acute it is 1, in chronic it is 4. Okay. Just remember this. So this is how you can calculate whether any primary acid base disorder is compensated or not. Okay. Now to diagnose whether the patient is having acute or chronic, you have to take the history. If the patient is having long-term any respiratory complications, then the patient is having like chronic disease, and if it is acute, like if the symptoms occur yesterday only, okay, within 24 hours, then it is acute definitely. So depending upon the history, you can diagnose whether it is acute or chronic, and after that you can calculate the compensation, whether there is adequate compensation or not, depending upon the increase or decrease in bicarbonate level. Okay, hope you guys understood this. So this is the summary of all the 3 steps. So in first step, you have to diagnose whether it is acidemia or alkalemia. If it is acidemia or acidosis, and if there is decreased SCO3, then it is metabolic acidosis. If it is increased PCO2, then it is respiratory acidosis. Okay. Now, if it is metabolic acidosis with low PSO, with expected, and the PCO2 is expected, then it is simple metabolic acidosis. But if PCO2 is low, then it is mixed metabolic acidosis and respiratory alkalosis. And if PCO2 is high, then mixed metabolic acidosis and respiratory acidosis. That example which you saw. Okay. Now, if similarly in respiratory acidosis also, you can by calculating the expected SCO3 bicarbonate level, you can classify whether it is simple or mixed. Okay. Similarly, in alkalemia, it can be due to increased bicarb or decreased PCO2. So if it is due to increased bicarb, then it is metabolic alkalosis. If it is due to decreased PCO2, then it is respiratory acidosis. And again, depending upon the compensation, you can calculate, you can classify whether it is like mixed or simple. Okay. Again, you see the example 1 and 2. In example 1, the pH is decreased, so it is acidosis. PCO2 is increased about 10. Okay. So if it is chronic case, then bicarbonate would have increased by 4. So bicarbonate has increased here around 4. So you can see that it is a compensated respiratory acidosis. Because PCO2 is increased by 10. 54 means 10 more than 45, around 10. So bicarbonate has increased 32, means 4 more than 28. So there is adequate compensation. So you can see the answer, that respiratory acidosis which is compensated. Okay. And you can see the example 2, pH is 7.32, PCO2 is 38, bicarb is 25. Everything is in normal range. Okay. So it is normal. It is of a normal patient. Okay. Now we will discuss about all metabolic disorders, simple metabolic disorders, one by one. Okay, what are the causes, what are the symptoms, and how to manage them. So first we will discuss metabolic acidosis. So I think all of you understood how to diagnose metabolic acidosis by ABG, okay, or by pH, bicarb, and your PCO2 level. So now that you have diagnosed, you should know how to manage, and you should know what are the symptoms and what are the causes. Okay. So first, metabolic acidosis, characterized by a decrease in serum pH that results from either a loss in plasma bicarbonate concentration or an increase in hydrogen ion concentration. Okay, simple. If there is loss of bicarbonate or increase in hydrogen ion, then it is metabolic. It will cause metabolic acidosis. Causes of metabolic acidosis are lots of causes. It can be normal anion gap and elevated anion gap. I don't want to discuss about anion gap because I think it is not necessary at your level to discuss about anion gap, to know about anion gap. But you should remember this, okay, that what are the causes of normal anion gap acidosis and what are the causes of elevated anion gap metabolic acidosis. Okay. I will, if you don't remember, I will tell you a mnemonic when you will discuss about ABG. Okay, there is a mnemonic to remember this. When we will discuss about ABG, I will tell you the mnemonic to remember this. Okay, so normal anion gap acidosis and elevated anion gap acidosis, these are the causes. Okay. Now the clinical feature. So the common causes are diarrhea, renal tubular acidosis, then diabetic ketoacidosis, alcoholic ketoacidosis, starvation ketoacidosis, liver failure, kidney failure. Okay, these are the common causes. Or in any poisoning like ethanol poisoning, methanol poisoning, ethylene glycol poisoning. Okay, you will get metabolic acidosis. The clinical features are: initially, the patients with metabolic acidosis develop a compensatory tachypnea and hyperapnea, significant work of breathing and distress, that is Kussmaul's breathing. So, as you have discussed, that whenever there is a acidosis, the other mechanism, other system try to compensate it. So, if there is metabolic acidosis, the lungs will try to compensate it initially. Okay, by increasing respiratory rate, that is tachypnea, and increasing the depth of breathing, that is hyperapnea. So by that it will try to wash out the CO2. Okay, it will compensate by washing out the CO2 by increasing by tachypnea and hyperapnea. So there will be significant work breathing and distress, and that is called as Kussmaul's breathing or acidotic breathing. Okay. If this metabolic acidosis is untreated and is severe, it may be associated with life-threatening arrhythmias, myocardial depression, respiratory muscle fatigue, seizures, shock, and multi-organ failure. Okay. If it is very severe enough, then it will cause this type of symptom. Because acidosis, as you know, it degrades the protein, it deactivates the various enzymes of our biochemical reaction in our body. So by that mechanism, it will cause various disturbances, life-threatening complications. Okay. Treatment is, if you diagnose metabolic acidosis, then the treatment is first to treat the cause. You have to diagnose the cause. What is the acidemia? What is the cause of the acidemia, and treat the cause. The definite treatment is treating the cause. Okay. But again, you can give supportive therapy in the form of sodium bicarbonate. Okay. Sodium bicarbonate is available commercially, and that you can administer in the patient. Okay, to replenish the loss of bicarbonate. Okay. Sodium bicarbonate is never given by bolus, okay, except in hyperkalemia and life-threatening acidosis. Because sodium bicarbonate is given as bolus, as you know that sodium bicarbonate, that means along with bicarbonate, it also contains sodium. So in my last class, while discussing hypernatremia, we discussed that if the sodium level increases very fast, then what happens? There is dehydration of brain cells, and that may cause severe brain hemorrhage. So in neonates, we always try to avoid sodium bicarbonate. Okay. Because in neonate the blood vessels are very fragile, very thin. So they have more chance or more of blood vessel rupture due to hypernatremia. So even if in adult or in older child, if you are giving sodium bicarb, you should give slowly, very slowly. Okay. Because if sodium is given very rapidly sodium bicarb, then sodium level will increase and that will cause severe hypernatremia, hyperosmolarity, and this complication that we discussed in my last class. But in hyperkalemia and life-threatening acidosis, so you have to give rapidly because you have to treat the present cause, present complication. Okay, whether the developed brain hemorrhage or not is different thing, but the patient will die of life-threatening acidosis. At that time, you have to give a bit fast. Okay, so sodium bicarb is given 2 milliequivalent per kg every 8 hours by IV infusion. Okay, slow IV infusion it is given. Like you calculate 2 milliequivalent per kg and give that one in 8 hours slowly. Okay, and each time before giving sodium bicarb, a fresh assessment is made that whether the acidosis is responding to our treatment or not, and if it are responding, then what is the increase or what is the increase in the bicarbonate level. Okay. Now coming to metabolic alkalosis. Metabolic alkalosis occurs when the elevation in plasma bicarbonate concentration in the extracellular fluid that results from either net loss of acid or net gain of base or loss of fluid with more chloride than bicarbonate. So these are two types. One is chloride responsive metabolic alkalosis, where the urine chloride level is less than 10, and chloride resistant metabolic alkalosis, where the urine chloride level is more than 20. Coming to causes of metabolic alkalosis, it can be chloride responsive, chloride resistant. The chloride responsive causes are like vomiting, diarrhea, okay, any volume contraction due to loop or thiazide diuretics, any diarrhea. Chloride resistance are due to any metabolic alkalosis that is caused by mainly kidney. Okay, so those are chloride resistance metabolic alkalosis. Okay. So clinical features are the signs and symptoms observed with metabolic alkalosis usually relate to the specific disease of the process. Okay, the cause of metabolic alkalosis. So the symptoms you will get according to the cause. Okay, increased neuromuscular excitability from hypocalcemia sometimes cause tetany and seizures. Generalized weakness may be noted if the patient also has hypokalemia. Alkalosis causes hypokalemia, acidosis causes hyperkalemia in general. Okay, so if there is severe alkalosis, there will be hypokalemia, and there will be symptoms of hypokalemia like weakness and all. Weight gain and hypertension may accompany metabolic alkalosis that results from hypermineralocortical state. So whenever there is metabolic acidosis, there is increased secretion of like activation of RAS system. Okay, because metabolic alkalosis mainly occurs due to volume contraction like diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration. So blood volume is decreased, so RAS system is activated, and that aldosterone causes more bicarb absorption. Okay, and that is how there is alkalosis. Okay, so there may be hypertension because of more aldosterone and angiotensin and all. Okay, signs of dehydration in case of vomiting and diarrhea may be present. Treatment is treat the cause. If the patient is saying vomiting and diarrhea, first treat that, or any other cause you find out, you treat it. In the initial target pH and bicarbonate level is correcting severe alkalemia are approximately 7.55 and 40 milliequivalent per liter respectively. Okay, so if it is more than 7.55, so the initial target should be bring the pH to 7.55 and bring the bicarb to 40 milliequivalent per liter. Because if it is more than this, then it can cause severe symptoms. So you have to try to correct it up to this pH 7.55 and bicarb 40 milliequivalent per liter. Most metabolic alkalosis is chloride responsive. Chloride replacement is the mainstay of therapy. The chloride can be replaced as sodium chloride, potassium chloride, and hydrogen chloride. Acetazolamide may help patients with chloride resistant metabolic alkalosis, provided the GFR is adequate. Acetazolamide, you must have read in the pharmacology, is a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Okay, so it prevents loss of bicarbonate. Patients with renal failure may require hemodialysis or continuous renal replacement therapy with a dialysate that contains high level of chloride and bicarbonate, low bicarbonate. Okay. So now coming to respiratory acidosis. Respiratory acidosis occurs when the alveolar ventilation falls or when carbon dioxide production is increased. Okay. So alveolar ventilation excretes carbon dioxide from our expiration. So if there is decreased alveolar ventilation due to any cause, due to damage of the alveoli, you know that the exchange of gas takes place in the alveoli. So if there is any disease causing ARDS or anything causing damage to the alveoli, then there will be decreased alveolar ventilation. So there will be decreased removal of CO2. That will cause retention of CO2 in our body, and that will cause respiratory acidosis. The clinical features include air hunger with retraction and use of accessory muscles. CNS, in CNS you may find anxiety, disorientation, confusion, lethargy followed by tremors, somnolence, coma at higher PCO2. Cardiovascular findings include tachycardia, bounding arterial pulse, and in severe cases hypotension. So respiratory acidosis may cause CNS, cardiovascular and other complications. Causes of respiratory acidosis can be decreased alveolar ventilation due to any cause, either depressed respiratory drive or paralysis of respiratory muscle, acute or chronic parenchymal lung injury due to pneumonia, ARDS, any cause causing alveolar injury, progressive neuromuscular disease causing less respiratory drive, or restrictive lung disease where the adequate ventilation cannot happen. High carbon dioxide production and inability to increase the minute ventilation, like extensive burn injury, malignant hyperthermia and fever, there is increased carbon dioxide production. Treatment is treat the cause and improve the ventilation. Treat the cause and improve the ventilation. So for improving the ventilation, you have to intubate the patient, place the ventilator and increase the ventilator rate. So we have to increase the respiratory rate so that there will be CO2 wash out. For that we have to intubate the patient, put on ventilator and increase the respiratory rate in the ventilator so that breathing is increased and CO2 wash out is there. So this is the treatment. Now coming to respiratory alkalosis. Respiratory alkalosis occurs in the setting of primary decrease in the partial pressure of CO2 or the CO2 level in our body as a consequence of hyperventilation. Causes of respiratory alkalosis may be hypoxia and hypoxemia due to high altitude and low fractional inspired oxygen, pulmonary disorders like pulmonary edema, embolism, air restriction, extrapulmonary causes like causes of severe respiratory alkalosis like stress, stroke, infection, trauma, medications like catecholamines, progesterone, hyperthermia. Clinical features of respiratory alkalosis includes patients primarily have clinical manifestation of the underlying disorder, manifest as feeling of tingling, paresthesia, dizziness, palpitations, tetany and seizures due to hypocalcemia. So the treatment is or management is correct the underlying disorder, and if there is hyperventilation syndrome is best treated by having the patient breathe into a paper bag to increase PCO2, decrease and ventilator rate. So if the patient is on ventilator, so you should decrease ventilator rate, and if not on ventilator, then you should give a paper bag so that when the patient breathes, that CO2 is contained in that, and again when he inspires, that CO2 again goes back inside his lungs. So by that you can increase the PCO2 level when there is respiratory alkalosis. So this is how these are how you can diagnose and manage the primary disorders, acid-base disorders: metabolic acidosis, respiratory acidosis, metabolic alkalosis, and respiratory alkalosis. Again, when we will be discussing about ABG, the procedure in our procedures, like we will discuss various procedures in your demo class, like how to do lumbar puncture, how to do how to put IV cannula, how to do ABG, how to do paracentesis. We will discuss in our demo class. At that time, when we will discussing about ABG, how to do ABG, how to perform, how to interpret it, we will discuss about details. 1 second. So this is all about metabolic alkalosis, like acid base disorder in children, in brief. Okay, and I think this is all for your level. You should know at least this much. So hope all of you understood this. You can ask if you have any question. Actually, that the class was delayed due to some technical problem, so now it is 12:30. So if you can ask if you have any doubt, or you can ask later. Okay, thank you all. Hope you guys understood it clearly. And in next class, most probably we will be discussing about diarrhea and dehydration. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you all for listening patiently.